Okay, next we have Mr. Matthew Hughes, who will talk about integrating STEAM into our curriculum through the NAE-MIT Collaboration. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Hi, good afternoon. Does that work? Can we hear me? So I want to talk to you today a little bit about what we do at our school at North Anglia, why we think STEAM is really important, and how we use our partnership with MIT to integrate STEAM projects into the curriculum. I think it follows quite well on from Dr. Amir's presentation, where we're at the start of the journey that he's gone through for 10 years, and how we go about going from a very content-driven curriculum to one which incorporates more STEAM-based projects, and some of the challenges that we're finding with that and how we overcome those challenges. I really like this quote from Susan Hockfield, who was the president of MIT, and I think it makes me think to being a child, to dream, to reach, to explore, to discover, to have adventures, to be innovative. They're all things that are done, or I associate with being a kid. Now, okay, sorry. I'll start again. So this quote is something that I associate with being a child. The words like explore and to have adventures, to discover, are all things that, again, that I associate with being younger. My wife is a kindergarten teacher, and when we have a talk in the evening about our day, she often describes the learning that goes on in her classroom. And it makes me a little bit sad, because she describes these young people full of enthusiasm, with limitless imagination and endlessly curious. And I think to the learning that goes on with the older children, and they lose some of that wonder between the ages of young kindergarten children and young primary children to young adults of 16 and 17. They start to lose some of that wonder. And our aim at our school is to try and bring some of that back into our curriculum. And why that's important is because our real world and the jobs that our children will be aiming to apply for require this imagination, require problem-solving skills. So I'm going to pose you all a question. And I'd like you to have a little think about that. Now, I was thinking about asking one of you for an answer, but I won't. Obviously, no one knows the answer. And it's a very difficult question to work out. And however, for companies like Google, for example, it's about the thought process. It's about how do we come up with the answer, and it's not memorizing facts. It's something that you can't Google. There is less of a demand these days for factual recall, because you can just ask your phone, for example, what part of the cell does respiration occur in. You can ask your phone and that will tell you. However, you can't ask your phone questions that are open-ended. And that's something that I think is really important to try and implement in our education of young people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we have collaborated with MIT. And obviously, it's a really famous university. It's the leading university in the world. I think I've just read an article for the 8th or 9th year in a row. It's been voted the leading university in the world. And they are leaders in hands-on practical problem solving, interdisciplinary learning, And they really value curiosity, creation, innovation, and invention. Now, if these people at this leading university can do stuff like I'm about to show you, then surely we can, as educators of younger people. So I'm going to show you a little video of a product design class from MIT. And it would be better with sound. So the idea behind this class is they had to design a vehicle to protect and deliver a package which went round an obstacle course with various challenges in the way. And you can see how different and creative and imaginative and how much fun these people seem to be having. Now, these are the leading minds in the world. These are the people that are going to be changing our world with some of the most innovative inventions. Yet they can still have fun, and they can still have fun while doing these complicated projects. So this is something at North Anglia that we really want to try and bring into our curriculum and have it embedded and not just for one-off projects. Hang on, there's something there. Right, okay, I'll work this out in a bit. So the reason why we do it is because obviously we're learning from MIT, and it has solid pedagogical background, and it's proven to improve students' learning. Project-based, hands-on learning, hands-on projects improve students' learning. And so what do we do? What does the collaboration look like? The main thing I'm going to talk about today is the challenges that we implement in our school. So MIT give us a set of challenges, and then we try and implement them involving as many teachers and as many pupils as we can. And then the idea for that is that over time, they will become embedded in our curriculum. So we get ideas from MIT, and we look at ways in which different subjects, different age groups can implement those ideas. We try and collaborate as much as possible across disciplines and across age groups. And then over time, they become normal lessons that revolve around these projects. We also get a few teachers to go to MIT and be inspired by some of the minds there. And the pupils also get to go. Again, really, really inspirational for them to dream about aiming to go to these top universities. So I'm going to talk to you about one project that we did, three projects under one central theme. So this theme came from MIT, and then we tried to implement it throughout a year. And it was based around the theme of curiosity. And the first bit that we did was we asked every kid in the school what were they curious about. We gave them no other instructions, and they had to present it in a way that they felt was fitting. And we took over our reception, and we presented all of their ideas as a display piece. So here's a a little bit of an example of what we did. So every kid came down with some questions, and they displayed them throughout. And we gave them no topics or anything like that. They could say absolutely anything that they wanted. And they spent time looking at each other's questions, trying to answer each other's questions, and it was a really, really valuable experience for them all. So we did that for a couple of weeks, and we had a look and we spoke to them about some of the answers. And the next part of the challenge a few months later is we had a look at some of those questions and we went, we're going to answer some of them. And so the second part was we picked one of the questions, or a few of the questions that were based around the environment, because we thought that was a really fitting topic and a real-world problem, and I think that real-world problems make these STEAM projects more valuable. So we looked at water pollution in Hong Kong. So we said to all of our primary students, where you are, where you live, can you collect a sample of water? Describe where it came from. Was it a river? Was it a puddle? Was it a reservoir? And bring it into school. Then, while they were doing that, we got our Year 9 pupils to learn about, we reminded them about pH, and we also taught them about hardness of water and how to test for relative hardness. Now, this is something that we did this for the first time during this project, but this is something that we regularly do now in science and in other subjects, where we enable the older children to teach the younger children from, we are right through school, so the kids come in at kindergarten and leave at 18. So there are plenty of opportunities to bring children through and into the science labs at a very young age to be taught by some of the older children. And it's very, very valuable for both the older children because they have to learn new content to a degree which they are able to explain it to younger children, and the younger children get an experience that they really enjoy. So then all the primary students came up with their sample of water and they tested it for the pH and hardness and sort of looked at some of the other aspects of pollution in that time. The next part of this was we had all this data, what do we do with this? And this is another really good example of some work that we've taken from MIT, and that's to try and make data tell a story. So we did some graphs, and we got the Year 8 students in maths to analyse the data and plot some graphs, but we are also trying to move away from taking numbers and just plotting graphs. We want to try and use as many innovative ways to show data as possible. They can make models, they can tell stories with it, and it's not necessarily something that traditionally you would get some numbers and you would plot a graph and that would be it. We want to try and take that further and to be a little bit more creative with data that we collect. So we then created a visualization of Hong Kong and used the data to show some of the key points from the analysis. And then our student council came in and presented everything that we found out to the assembly. So we are bringing everyone and trying to involve as many people as possible in these projects. The idea behind that is to make sure that when we no longer have a partnership with MIT, or when there is no one to facilitate these projects, that the teachers themselves who have been involved in these projects then have something to keep and to do with their children on a permanent basis. So once we've used the data, we then have a design and build challenge. So we used the problems, we had a look, we came away with the take-home point that there are areas in Hong Kong where the water is polluted. There's a plastic ocean, well, the plastics in the ocean issue, and there's also water pollution. So then we had a series of events that were all based around plastics and plastics in the ocean. So we showed the film, we had a big screening, and then we did a big draw. So pupils in art came together and they created a big mural. This is right back here before. Where was it? And this should be a video. Yes. So all the kids came and created a piece of artwork based around the theme of plastic oceans. And it was a really successful little activity, and we had a really imaginative piece of artwork at the end of it. As well as that, we also had Year 6's design, build and develop products to improve the ocean environment. And we had outside people come in to judge those products. And there was also art installations from recycled material. So we again trying to involve as many teachers as possible, trying to involve as many pupils as possible, and making sure that these teachers that are not necessarily science teachers or traditional STEAM teachers, that they have ideas for activities that they can use on a regular basis and embed it into their curriculum. So this is our challenge now. How do we take these activities from MIT and embed them into our curriculum? Well, we've started to do that. That was 1 year. We've been doing it for 3 years now, so we have plenty of examples of activities that we use, and we're trying to encourage teachers to use those ideas and put them where they fit naturally in their curriculum. A few of the things that we do, we have in science, we do a superhero project where they design a costume for a superhero based on animal adaptations. We also look at protective headwear and use data loggers to work out design some headwear to protect sports stars. We look at drones and how they can be used for good. And we also do F1 in schools. Our F1 in schools project is done in science. We talk about the physics behind F1, but they design a company in their computing lessons, and that's a really good interdisciplinary project. So I'm going to leave you with some top tips of how we go about choosing projects, why we think, how we go about choosing the projects and how we get them into the curriculum successfully. So the first one is really, really important. If you make it relevant, if it is a real world problem, then the children are more likely to buy into that activity. If you want teachers involved that are not necessarily STEAM teachers, if they're not science or maths teachers or technology teachers, then involve them in the planning process. Rather than say, here's our project, I want you to do this bit, then they might not agree, but they also have expertise. The English teachers will tell you the best way to go around creating a part of a project that involves English. Your geography teachers will tell you how to best involve geography content. And as open-ended as possible. We recently had a company come in to help us design rocket cars, and we had a competition, and the lady that ran the project said the younger children always do better than the older children, because the older children will always design something that looks exactly like an F1 car. They've seen an F1 car, so they will copy the design, and that's what they end up with. However, the younger children have no restrictions, and they design really crazy things that sometimes don't work, but sometimes turn out to be the really surprisingly fast and sort of successful models. Value the process more than the outcomes. Okay, I've just been told my time's up, but I'll leave you with that. Show them if they're working well together, praise them, give out certificates for teamwork, and rather than judging the outcome, give awards for the things that they do before they get there. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Hughes. Again, this is a Q&A time, so please post your question onto the platform. One of the questions here is that, could you please tell us in a bit more detail about how the teachers are trained to get to STEAM education, and are there any obstacles that the teachers face?
So we have a STEAM coordinator who is in Boston at the minute. So he goes to MIT once a year and takes another teacher from another discipline with him. So they get teacher training there, and then that gets shared with, the ideas get shared with the staff, but also with the projects that we plan and create. We try and involve as many teachers as possible that don't necessarily involve themselves in this style of learning, whether it's primary teachers or secondary subjects that don't necessarily naturally lend themselves to STEAM. And when we do involve them, we give them as much help and guidance as possible, and we try and give them ideas so those ideas then become an embedded part of their curriculum.
Okay, another question is, should students participate in competitions?
Should students participate in competitions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are lots of things going on in Hong Kong as well, and I think competition is a really good way of buying input from students. If it motivates them if they think there is a reward at the end of it. But similarly, it's also very important not to put too much emphasis. If the competition is judged on the final output, then you need to make sure that there is plenty of value in the process as well, that you're talking them through the process and giving them praise and rewards for the work that they do prior to their final outcomes.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Hughes.